Okay, so today I want to offer some reflections about brainwashing techniques and how that might link over to boarding schools and just some ideas and reflections about that. Okay. So as you know, I love to research and study, and I was listening to Jocko Willink a couple of weeks ago. And Jocko Willink is a Navy SEAL, retired. He was I think, a commander, officer, and he was in charge of platoons. I think he was in Afghanistan, possibly Iraq. And in this video that I listened to, he's talking about brainwashing techniques. And as he was saying, basically the four key elements of brainwashing, I'm like, that sounds like boarding school to me. And so I just thought I would share them with you, and just, whether it's true or not, this is just some ideas. But I thought, wow, this is fascinating. So the first thing he talks about is sleep deprivation. And then that's a key part of brainwashing. So if we draw upon boarding school syndrome from Joyce Schaverien, she says, sleeping times are prescribed. Other children, prefects or staff may interrupt children's sleep. For some, the bed is not a safe place, and so the imaginal world of sleeping, reverie and dreaming may be distorted. Now, I've heard from clients, from friends who were at boarding school say they were often woken in the night. Charles Spencer, he says that, he was woken in the night. And King Charles talks about in here, he says, at night in the dormitory, the bullies maliciously and relentlessly tormented Charles, who detailed the abuse in anguished letters to friends and relatives. I hardly get any sleep, he said, because I snore and get hit on the head the whole time. It's absolute hell. So I think sleep deprivation, I have often heard this, so that's the first one. The second way you brainwash someone is you take people away from friends and family. That's what he says. So what is boarding school? It is you separating the child from the family. You are breaking the attachment at age 8, 11, 13. And so, I don't need to read anything out about that, because that's just a given. That's what happens. So I just thought, number 2, you take people away from family. The third thing is you make them feel guilty about what they've done. And I was just thinking, well, how does that link into boarding school? Is that often we feel guilty because we've been sent away. Sometimes people make the choice, like I did, to go away to school. And I felt guilty because I'd made this choice. But as an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, when I made the decision, I've heard friends who their mothers at age 7 showing them around the school. What do you think of it? Oh, it's okay. Great, we'll send you there. You don't understand the consequences, so you feel guilty. So, Nick Duffell, in his book Wounded Leaders, he talks about, in here, he says, about betrayal. And he says that the Borders double bind goes like this: if they love me, why do they send me away? And if it is so important and I don't like it, must be something wrong with me. So that second level, we start to feel guilty about why are we there? Why have we been sent to this place? So something wrong with me. The other thing, and I've often heard this from other people say, is that often it was seen as, if you were sent away from your parents, or, growing up, you see prison, people being sent away, it's a punishment, it's a bad thing. So when they send us away, we feel guilty. There's something we've done which is wrong, something, and I've noticed this myself is, once I was sent away, I was no longer part of my family. I could no longer really connect with them. I didn't see them 9 months of the year. Then once I left school, I went off traveling, and I think spent 6 years abroad. So yeah. And the other bit about guilt comes from Judith Herman, the psychiatrist, who's written this seminal work, and page 105. She says, similarly, adult survivors who have escaped from the abusive situation continue to view themselves with contempt and to take upon themselves the shame and guilt of their abusers. So you might say, well, I wasn't abused at boarding school. Well, if you take the definition of the NSPCC, they say neglect is the ongoing failure to meet a child's basic needs. And if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the most basic level is food. Most people first year, certainly we didn't get enough food, shelter and clothing, but also safety. And often we weren't feeling safe, as Prince Charles saying there. It was hell. So neglect is the ongoing failure to meet a child's basic needs and the most common form of child abuse. Yeah, so neglect. And I feel, these schools are neglect. So that's the third one, so about guilt. And then the final one, talking about brainwashing techniques, is hero syndrome. The person comes in as the savior. And this doesn't necessarily link into boarding school, but I think it does, because basically we break the attachment and then the child attaches to the institution. It's like they are seen as the savior. They're saving us from, being stupid or being working class into being middle class or upper class. It's like putting us almost, we're projecting that out onto something greater than ourselves, the school. Another way this could be maybe linked in is this idea of, the prefects or the hierarchy in these schools is seen that anybody who's older than us, they're better, they are heroes, or the rugby team, they're a great rugby player, right? It's like this hero worship. So I don't necessarily see that they come in as a savior in the same way that maybe they would use in the military. But I can really see that, yeah, there is definitely some form of hero syndrome there, that, we see them as somehow better. And if I link into my own school, in the BBC's article about one of my teachers who was arrested, he said that the teachers were seen as gods in my school, and they had so much power. So again, it's that hero syndrome. It's like, oh my God, they're exalted, they are something, so yeah, I just thought it was fascinating to just kind of go through that and just go, wow, these are what the military used to brainwash people. And sleep deprivation, taking people away from friends and family, making them feel guilty, and then the hero syndrome. It's like, wow, that sounds certainly 3 out of 4 I can really resonate with, but even possibly 4. So these are just some of my thoughts. It might be, might not make sense, but I just thought, wow, that's really fascinating. Let me know what you think. If that really resonates, please do let me know. And yeah, thank you as always, and wishing you a great week. Okay, take care. Oh, and before I end, I've got a great podcast going live on Friday with actor and comedian Jonathan Hansler. He'd been in shows like EastEnders. He's an ex-boarder, had a very similar upbringing to myself, military, alcoholic father. And yeah, I'm going to be interviewing him. I did interview him last week, but it's going to be going live on Friday, and I really loved the interview. Fascinating guy, very flowing, talking about Buddhism, spirituality, alcoholism, and Peter Cook, who's fascinated in comedy and how that all happened. So that's live on Friday. So enjoy. Okay,